actual knowledge of violation of the county ethics title. But it does not expand the mandatory reporting. As in the previous draft, the 5-day time limit on reporting is eliminated. The language from an earlier draft, which expands training to encourage reporting, is included. Second, the new substitute recognizes and clarifies what is already in the county code and is current practice, that non-employees can also be whistleblowers. Contractors, people receiving county services, and their friends and family members may see and report ethical problems. The current code already recognizes people who do business with the county as whistleblowers. The draft adds people seeking or receiving county services and other people who know of violations. Their reporting is clarified to be either to the IG or to the relevant county department. While we don't set up a formal hearing process, the substitute states that non-employees may make retaliation complaints to the Inspector General. We have been advised legally that any non-employee who is retaliated against after being a whistleblower has the right to sue in court. The hope here is to provide a way that at least some of such complaints could be resolved informally without litigation. Inspector General Beeler told us that her office's policy on receiving non-employee retaliation complaints would be to discuss the complaint with the relevant county department and urge that department to investigate and take corrective action as needed. And third and finally, at Inspector Beeler's suggestion, the substitute language on creating a written record of verbal complaints is tweaked to allow those who wish to remain anonymous to do so. This version expands whistleblower protections, encourages reporting, and increases clarity, and I ask for the committee's recommendation to send this version to the full council.
Thank you, Councilman Miller. Any other discussion?
Well, I don't know at this point, Mr. Chair, if my substitute should be discussed or if at this
close
point.
this one out and then we're going to move to yours.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, you want to vote on this substitute and then wait to talk about this one? Shouldn't they be discussed prior to a vote?
There's been my initial thought before when I came in here is there's a motion on the floor to discuss an amendment.
Okay.
After this is done, we're going to have, if there's another amendment offered, we'll have that
Okay.
discussion.
Well, I'll talk about this one then, if I can have leave of the chair to talk about what's on the table.
I just recognize you, Madam.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to discuss a little bit of the history of this particular ordinance that came before us in different versions at different times in different ways. The one that is in front of us now restores the mandatory reporting to its original form. It came before us that it was totally deleted. I think that this version is better to have mandatory reporting in there. I also think that it should be stronger to include, I'm going to make a distinction between mandatory reporting and a discretionary reporting as it sits here in version number 3. So there's mandatory reporting for somebody who has actual knowledge that the ethics code has been violated. But it makes it discretionary for an employee or a county official, discretionary. They have a choice whether they're going to report an actual violation of state law or federal law. I believe that it should be mandatory to report actual knowledge of an employee who commits a violation of a federal law or state law. I'm not sure why we dilute and make it discretionary to report an actual observance of a violation of a law. So I want to give an example of that. So let's say that we have a social worker who's driving to a home on a complaint that a child is neglected or abused. and that person driving is intoxicated. That person driving is inebriated or under the influence of drugs. There's somebody else in the car. It's a fellow employee who's going along for the ride to the house of the child. Person's driving drunk, and that employee has no mandate to report that. I believe that it's our responsibility as stewards of this county's most vulnerable, our children, our seniors, the taxpayers, entrust in us to make sure that we keep safe those that are in our care. If we don't believe that an employee who witnesses a drunk driver going to a child's house shouldn't report, and that goes unreported, I don't believe that's good policy for this county. I can give another example. An employee that witnesses a social worker, or let's say an appraiser at a property and steals something. That employee who witnesses that doesn't have to report that. They walk away. It's easy to walk away. It's not easy when we have the burden of protecting our residents to report. And now we have a strengthened whistleblower provision that should encourage and my colleagues to make sure that this is a mandate. Now, I want to point out that our HR manual already has mandatory reporting for acts of violence, carrying weapons, other things in there that already have to report, but not only with actual knowledge, but maybe just learn about something. So why is our provision here in a whistleblower code less stringent than that which is contained in our HR policy? That doesn't make sense. So we're only going to, mandate mandatory reporting for sexual harassment, acts of violence, but not those that I just gave examples of, that we're going to select which violations of the law should be reported. So that ends up being the version. The only difference between the two substitutes would be to include that anybody who actually knows and witnesses a violation of law needs to report it. Now, what's the downside to that? So I've heard we don't want to be a nanny state. Well, it's proven not to be a nanny state. In fact, we want to encourage people to report wrongdoing. For 10 years, we've had this on the books with mandatory reporting, with an HR policy that requires reporting to HR or to protective services if there's a weapon. I have not seen, nor have I heard from any of the 3 inspector generals that there's been a problem with a nanny state. I think we should have a different mentality, that it's our role to protect and not to worry about somebody being a snitch. Why not do it? Well, I've heard, if people don't report, they're going to be afraid they'll get in trouble if they don't report. That's been on the books for 10 years. And, I don't think we should err on the side of somebody being afraid to report. I think we must err on the side of mandating reporting when we see something wrong. We're elevated to a different position as being elected officials, taxpayer employees. This isn't the private sector. I think we have to stand above and stand strong against any wrongdoing that we see in this county. I was here at the beginning 10 years ago. We saw what happened with the county corruption, and that was because people looked the other way. And we are prided in the help of the League of Women Voters to have the strongest ethics code in the state. And I would like to see that continued but strengthened. And by the way, the IG's office receives calls anyways about violations. So it's happening anyways, but I think we need to have a strong message that even a violation of the law, any violation of the law that's witnessed, bad behavior must be reported. So that's the difference between versions 3 and 4. And the 5-day reporting period came out. Thank you. And that's my position on why we need to strengthen this even further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Councilwoman. Any other discussion? I'm sorry, Councilman, I apologize.
That's okay, no problem. I was not here. I was out of the country during the last conversations, and I would have supported Mr. Miller's original point of view, which was the May. And having spent time with this area of criminal justice and reform and areas of this nature in my own private life and being actively involved in the United States Army through through the Inspector General. I believe that if you look at the results of what we've had up to this point, if you ask the Inspector Generals, and actually the previous one was a big proponent, I believe, of the May conversion out there, that you would find that they would say that the people who have reported of our 50-plus cases, the individual did not even know that shall was in the provisions. They would say that they came forward and said they wanted to report it. So this is not the big brother state. This is not what is being forced upon them. It is still individuals responding in the appropriate way. If you look at the cases that have come forward, I believe you'll find that that's the majority of where we are. The previous Inspector General was in favor of this, and so as a result, I would have been in favor of it. I will be supporting the amendment number 3 because it is still strengthen it, but it isn't and we've left the word shall in. I don't know that I would like to hope that people that report things because they see it actually do it on the basis of good citizenship. They don't have to be told and mandated. I'm getting really, as far as when you look at it, seeing mandates coming out through every other part of our government, and so the less mandates, the more citizen obligations. I can't help but think that the League of Women Voters would not be encouraging those folks to come forward and be good citizens and step forward as opposed to being mandated to do X, Y, or Z. So I will support the third one, even though I would have supported actually the May in the previous draft.
Thank you, Councilman, or Councilman, Councilwoman.
Yes, just a little clarification. First of all, the way that our charter reads, how does our charter read? Does our charter read ethics code, or does it read the county, state, or federal law? Which way how does our county charter read? Do we have an answer to that?
Brendan? Excuse me, Esquire Doyle?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members, Brendan Doyle, council staff. The county charter creates the position of the agency of Inspector General. It speaks generally to the types of offenses that the Inspector General would investigate, but it doesn't speak to state law, criminal, federal law, those types of violations. It only speaks to, and the words are escaping me right now as far as what it says in the charter, but it doesn't speak to the state law, federal law, only the creation of the agency of Inspector General itself, and some of those other things as well, but not state or federal law. It doesn't get into those details.
But does it specifically say ethics?
Correct.
That's what it specifically says in the charter, ethics violations.
Correct. It creates the agency, the office, which it's the chief ethics officer for the county. That's correct.
Does that give some clarification?
Yes, that's what I thought it said. I just wanted to make sure that it was confirmed. So thank you for that. So we are mirroring really
you.
what it says in the county charter. The second question for clarification, on both I have in front of me, 3 and 4, I don't see any difference here. And if I can go to 4D, it says any employee who reasonably believes a violation of any county, state, or federal law, rule, or regulation has occurred or will occur may make a whistleblower complaint with a supervisor within the employee's chain of command. And on 3, it says exactly the same thing. So we have 2 versions here that say may on D when it comes to if an employee who reasonably believes a violation of any county, state, or federal law, rule, or regulation has occurred or will occur, may make a whistleblower complaint. Can I have clarification on why that word is may in both of these sections, both
Go
of
to
these
Councilman Miller first, and then
legislations?
Councilwoman Simon.
So I would clarify that the difference between the 2 versions is in section C. In section C, the the version that I submitted says that any elected official, employee, or board member who possesses actual knowledge of a violation of this title, which is the ethics title, shall make a whistleblower complaint, and so on. But the version D adds that any elected official, employee, or board member who possesses actual knowledge of a violation of this title, and then it adds, or any county, state, federal law, rule, or regulation that occurred during the normal course and scope of county business. So it adds additional things that are mandated to be reported, and then it carries over Section D for things that wouldn't be covered by Section C. I presume that would be the intent.
Do you agree? Madam Chair.
Yeah, through the chair to my colleague Baker, the difference between version 3 and 4 is simply that the mandated reporting in C, in the fourth version, mandates a violation if you witness and have actual knowledge of a violation of county, state, or federal law. Drinking and driving, OVIs, on county, it's all in county time, by the way. I thought that was really important, that weekend, whatever you do on the weekends or off time, that's your business. But when you're working within the scope and course of your employment at the county, you shouldn't be stealing, you shouldn't be drinking and driving, you shouldn't be doing these things, and that would mandate somebody with knowledge of that to report. That's the only difference, is that I added the county and state and federal law violations as a cause for mandatory reporting.
And if I may, and then following in your legislation, you then change from C to D and use the word may. For an employee who reasonably believes a violation of any county, state, or federal law, rule, or regulation has occurred or will occur, may. And it just seems to be, I understand somewhat the difference, but it seems to be in conflict.
The difference, through the chair to Councilwoman Baker, that D was already there.
I know
And
it
the
was.
difference is, one is if somebody reasonably believes that something has occurred,
I know.
then they may, it's in their discretion to report. And the compromise from Councilman Miller was, will mandate only if you have actual knowledge. So that's the difference between the other difference between C and D.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other questions? Hearing none?
If I may.
Oh, please.
Just one more time, if you're going to wrap up here. I think that it's important that we understand the difference between the two. And I do struggle because I think mirroring the charter is important. I mean, we should change that if we think that that's not strong enough. And to have a piece of legislation that differs from what that says is something that I think maybe deserves a little more conversation. But the way that C reads in D is any elected official, employee, or board member who possesses actual knowledge of a violation of this title, which mirrors the code, shall make a whistleblower complaint with a supervisor with the employee's chain of command, the agency of Inspector General, or the Department of Human Resources, unless the individual knows the violation has already been appointed. So I think that what's been presented in 3 covers what it is that we were most wanting to make sure was enforceable, that the word shall is in there, that it mirrors the code of what we've all agreed upon. It's what we have sworn to uphold. And I don't know why we need to add more words to make it stronger when I think the strength is already there. I did hear your examples. I'm not sure if that person wouldn't also say that I just drove with someone who was drunk in the car, and I have an obligation to make sure that the authorities know that. I can't imagine anyone not, especially if they're talking about children. So those are my comments. on what's before us. I think that 3 is a strong written piece of legislation, and it covers what it is that we most want, and that is wording the word shall in the legislation to make sure that a whistleblower's complaint is heard and is mandated.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Baker. Any other discussion? Hearing none, there's been a motion to approve, there's been a second, there's been discussion, it's closed. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on amendment number 3.
Just for clarification, this is on just if we're going to approve the amended version?
Yes.
Okay.
Calling the roll on amendment number 3.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Thank you very much. Amendment
Motion
number
carries.
3 has been approved. Is there any other discussion? You have no interest in number 4?
We already talked about it. We're good. I heard from the colleagues, they were happy with 3.
So we're very specific that the amendment number 4 that is on my desk, you do not want to have it heard.
Right.
Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Thank you.
With that being said, it's going to be a motion to refer it to second reading to the entire council at the next council meeting.
I so move.
Second. Roll call?
Calling the roll on ordinance number 2020-002. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Ms. Simon? Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schron? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And to my colleagues, thank you very much for the robust conversation and discussion. And I think we just help advance the whistleblower in a more stronger fashion. Now we're going to move to the second portion of our meeting, a discussion, the Agency of Inspector General Semi-Annual Report from July 1 to December 31st, 2021. And we have Inspector General Alexa Beeler before us today. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
And first, thank you for your assistance and involvement in the whistleblower legislation. With your involvement, it is much appreciated, and the value that you added made it much better. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Alexa Beeler. I'm the,
Microphone on?
it is on, although it's not positioned. There we go. My name is Alexa Beeler. I am the Interim Inspector General for Cuyahoga County. As you know, we report our work on a semi-annual basis. The work that is highlighted in this report was done in the last half of 2021 under the leadership of our previous Inspector General, Mark Griffin, who left the agency just before the new year. The one constant that did remain was our amazing staff who were integral in the preparation of this report and also the work that it highlights. A huge thank you to First Assistant Deputy Inspector General Mark Cutright, Deputy Inspectors General Pete McGinney, Andrea Warner, Cicely Woods, Kim Seeley, and Mary Bradley, and our Ethics and Education Counsel, Delonte Thomas. This is just a very brief overview of the second half of 2021. We completed 24 investigations, reviewed 200 secondary employment activity disclosures, issued 65 ethics opinions and advisories, registered 406 county contractors, and reviewed 7 nepotism and conflict of interest submissions. We also assisted in collecting a little over $2.3 million in property taxes. This tax collection effort was done in cooperation with the offices of Prosecutor Mike O'Malley, Fiscal Officer Mike Chambers, and Treasurer Chris Murray in what is known as the Fishbowl Project. Our agency plays a very small role in this project, and it is really the individuals who make up the fishbowl that are the driving effort behind this tax collection. We are very fortunate to have several members of the fishbowl here today. Michael Sweeney, Adam Judy, Lisa Evans, and Sean McNally. They will be coming up to talk a bit about the project and answer any questions that you all might have before we really get rolling into my presentation. So with that, with your permission, I'll call up Michael Sweeney from the Fishbowl.
Please come on up. Full disclosure, this is my brother, and he's absolutely, without a doubt, without question. And what piqued my interest when I started, we had my first Zoom call and I met Inspector General Griffin, and just seeing him say Operation Fishbowl, and what a outstanding group of individuals that do very good things collecting taxes for Cuyahoga County. And I remember the Fishbowl way back when was in the old administration building, and I just thought it'd be appropriate to have the Fishbowl representatives come and tell us how it came into existence, how has it been doing. I think for a minute the Fishbowl was lost, and then somebody found it, and it's back working. So the floor is yours.
Chairman Sweeney, thank you, and distinguished colleagues, thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. I'd just like to introduce Lisa Evans. Could you please stand up? And Sean McNally, please. These are two of my distinguished colleagues from the Treasury/Fishbowl. Between Lisa, Sean, and myself, we have close to 100 years of public service and within the Treasury, serving the public. And also, could you please, Adam Judy? Adam Judy is the prosecutor from the prosecutor's office. He is in charge of Prosecutor O'Malley's foreclosure division, and we are hopefully their welcomed and guest over in the courthouse square, because it's a collaboration of fiscal office employees plus prosecutor office employees as we work to help and serve taxpayers who are past due from the time they become delinquent all the way up to and through foreclosure. And also, could we also please have Lisa Rocco, our Director of Operations, please stand. She is the one that helps coordinate the collaborative efforts. And as Chairman Sweeney indicated, the Fishbowl has been around for decades. If you would recall back to the old county administration building, they had a large lobby that was there. At some point, half of the lobby was turned into an office called the Delinquent Tax Department, or the Delinquent Tax Research Department. And what the county did is they actually created a glass wall, a big L, 115 feet by 15 feet. And when people saw that and saw the 20-plus people in there who housed Board of Revision members, plus our Delinquent Tax Department, people looked at that and said, this looks like an aquarium. Therefore, hence the term Fishbowl. And that has stuck ever since, and that was way back when, last century. We have been working on that to assist taxpayers for years and years, as Chairman Sweeney indicated that sometime a while back, different methods or measures were considered to assist in the collection of real estate taxes. Some years ago, maybe about 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit closer, a little bit sooner, it was determined that outside collection agencies would assist in the collection of real estate taxes. And two very reputable collection agencies were giving thousands of parcels to try to collect on. And they did. And they did a very nice job. But they also was a charge for their services. And at the direction and directive of Executive Budish, Prosecutor O'Malley, and others, there was conversation that could we not possibly have these type of services somewhere within the county to provide that and try to help taxpayers rather than maybe outsourcing this. Many years ago, I received
tell us how what does it do? What's the prosecutor do with the treasurer's office? How does it work? Why is it streamlined so well?
Well, because we look at.
What do you do that's so special?
We try to serve the taxpayers one taxpayer at a time. I actually have a little article that was written a couple years ago from South Euclid about the Fishbowl. It's 2 pages. It's here. May I bring that up to everyone?
I think you should take it to the clerk.
Yeah, take it to the clerk. Prosecutor it expedites the foreclosure process.
Well, that's just part of it, Chairman Sweeney. What we try to do is reach out to taxpayers as they first become delinquent. We created a letter, we call it our Treasurer Christopher Murray letter. folks who were just advertised last year for the first time, we are reaching out to those individuals. We did that, and we just finished about 1,600 letters we just sent out. We have many tools, or many collection tools. We have a treasurer letter, we have a fiscal office letter. We try to identify taxpayers who are delinquent, and we try to have them call us, and we work with them. With the wonderful assistance and collaboration with the Inspector General, our two respective offices have looked at the highest delinquencies in Cuyahoga County, the commercial industrial accounts. And through the collaborative efforts and identifying these parcels, the Inspector General's office will send out something that it's a initial consideration for debarment. If the Sweeney Construction Company may be doing business with Cuyahoga County, he has to make sure that the taxes are paid. If he has any consideration in the future to do business, they may be debarred. We have been doing this for a couple years now, work very closely with the Inspector General's office and Mr. McGinney in particular. And an example of that is I just have a parcel here, right on Euclid Avenue. It has been delinquent for a number of years. We've been working with them. The Fishbowl originally reached out to them to try to help them. Sean McNally placed the first call. Other people within our office made calls. The Inspector General sent out this letter for consideration of debarment. Received a call 2 weeks ago from the major partner here and spoke with Lisa Evans. That conversation was about a possible payment plan or payment in full. With the collaborative efforts of everyone, I'd like to report that last week, almost $500,000 was taken to the Treasury to pay this off in full.
So basically, you do the work, the prosecutors get the legal things in order, and the Inspector General is the hammer, and they got their attention, and they didn't want to be disbarred or debarred, whatever you called it.
Right.
And you got the $500,000.
On this particular case, yes. And we look at the highest dollar amounts. We look, another example, Chairman Sweeney, is we created a fiscal office letter. This is for our senior citizens who have the homestead credit. We have sent out a letter to everyone that fits that criteria. That letter was crafted and tweaked with the respective offices of the fiscal and prosecutor's office. Through that letter, we have sent it out to thousands of taxpayers. Millions of dollars have been paid. People are staying in their home. As we all know, if you have a tough situation, you may want to put it to the side. You may not want to deal with it at this time because life goes on. Some people say you might put your head in the sand. All we're trying to do, Chairman Sweeney, is for everyone who is delinquent to try to reach out to them, have them call us, and let us help them with them pay their taxes.
And that's the difference between outsourcing and the county doing it.
That's correct. Councilman, we also have a number of initiatives. We have another one that just came to our attention last year in the summer. We received an email from Cleveland Housing Network asking for some assistance. They have received dollars through OFA out of Columbus through the federal program, American Relief Program. We are working with them, and as of this week, this is a program that I've never seen the likes of. If you are delinquent up to $10,000, and this is a program that Cleveland Housing Network administers, they, through the application process, if you are eligible, you can get up to $10,000 of your real property taxes paid. As we have the pleasure of speaking this afternoon, per Nina Holzer, who provided this for me yesterday, 263 homeowners in Cuyahoga County have been approved for this federal program that goes through Columbus and is administered from Cleveland Housing Network, and all the checks come to the Treasury. And I know because I'm the one that brings them to the Treasury. Of those 263 homeowners, not commercial industrial, homeowners, $1.27 million has been collected through this program, and 263 individuals' homes now have a zero balance.
And they get to stay in their home.
Stay in their home.
Otherwise, they'd be foreclosed on.
otherwise they'd be foreclosed on. And working with the prosecutor's office, there have been taxpayers that have gone through this process and have been identified. They were up for an upcoming sheriff's sale. It's just a remarkable collaborative effort, Council
So
Chairman.
basically, the system is, we try to help, and if they stick their head in the sand, you give it your best effort, and the ones that just try to tell you to jump in the lake, you play hard with them, and you try to get their
As need
attention.
be, yes, sir.
Okay.
And we also have complimentary letters from taxpayers just this month. One person has said thank you. They're going to come in to visit the person in person to say thank you for your taxes. Here's another person, this is Release Evans, just 2 weeks ago. Thank you for your help with this situation. I am very grateful of all the people they talked with this issue. You were the only one that figured it out. Thank you for helping me. Last item is, this is for a colleague, Karen, in the prosecutor's office, who's part of our fishbowl team. I do not know where to begin to thank you for what you have done and those who have allowed it to be done. You saved me from a file bankruptcy to keep my house, and the county will get all their money in a lump sum. Best thing the county, and beyond the best thing for me and my family. It would have been so limiting for me to try and recover from bankruptcy at the age of 58. I am enjoying the best job I ever had, and I will not have to worry about getting a foreclosure notice in the mail every day. You allowed me to rebound slow but steady, and I am in a much better place because of you, Karen. And I will be able to keep the home my parents built in 1972 to pass it down to future generations. Thank you does not cut it. In addition to collecting dollars, we are here to serve taxpayers, one taxpayer at a time, whether it's a commercial entity or it's someone, if it's their home. And over the last 4 years of the fishbowl reconstitution, over $60 million have come through the collaborative efforts of everyone.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to highlight this a little bit. It's a little bit different than seeing 2 point or 1 point, whatever the dollar amount on a report. So I hope my colleagues got a fuller understanding. And the Cuyahoga County tries to take care of the residents that we have, and if they can't, we gave it a good shot. And if you try to tell us to jump in the lake, you're gonna have to deal with this. That's what I got out of it. Any questions for the person from, oh, my brother, I should say. I shouldn't say the person. Councilwoman Baker?
Hello, and nice to meet you.
Nice to see you again, Chair.
Your brothers, that's nice. How did the pandemic play into what it is that you've done? I know there were some relief programs and stays of when things were due and postponements of when property tax was due. We had quite a bit go on in the last couple of years. So how did you work with those that were still perhaps behind in their taxes during the pandemic time?
Great question. Thank you, Councilwoman Baker. As we said, we tried to help everyone during the pandemic. The Treasury did extend some time periods. Of course, everything that we do is dictated by the Ohio Revised Code. Payment plan options are within the Ohio Revised Code. Those are discussed. The Treasury did reach out to individuals who are on a payment plan to see if there could be some assistance during the pandemic. We are trying to be, as we always have, but even more so during the pandemic, trying to assist the taxpayers the best we can, as I said, within the parameters of the Ohio Revised Code.
So you were still in the process, still working with people. You didn't see a slowdown or changes or the need perhaps, because of all that people were going through at the time?
Councilwoman, there were actually some moratoriums that were in place as well from the prosecutor's office. There was a pause or a holding back of foreclosure proceedings.
Right.
Those kicked back in, I believe, at the beginning of this year or late last year. So there was a freeze on that. Other pauses did occur from the court's perspective based on their ability to be as understanding and helping the best they can through this pandemic. But for us in the fishbowl, our focus is real estate taxes, assisting them to pay their obligation in full or to enter into payment plans if they have that opportunity. And we've always been try to be very understanding and helpful in that area.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just curious. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? We have none. Thank you very much. Oh, please. The floor
Chairman
is
Sweeney,
yours.
might I add one other thing? The other thing that we do at the request of our partners throughout the community is we will go out and participate in community outreach events. Just this year, we've been in the Fairfax area. We've been in Ward 1. We will be going out to Maple Heights. Because sometimes when you're dealing with this type of issue, it might be better to be sitting down across from someone or talking, because then you have that personal connection rather than maybe calling down to the county. And when we do go out, it's about the real estate taxes, but we have a team out with us. We have colleagues from the fiscal real estate department to talk about homestead, to talk about the border revision or other things that might be able to assist them as we try to keep everyone in their property and in their home.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you
Chairman
very much.
Sweeney.
I know our tax dollars on the fishbowl salaries are a great investment. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, everyone.
The floor is back to you, Inspector General, and we appreciate the second half report and ask you to continue.
Okay. So during the first half of 2021, the agency set 3 goals for itself to work toward accomplishing in the second half of 2021. The first was to establish a tip reporting hotline in cooperation with the county sheriff. We were going to work with the sheriff to create a confidential tip hotline that would receive administrative type complaints and also complaints regarding the county jail. We did not end up establishing this hotline because the sheriff elected to integrate it into their Crime Stoppers tip hotline that they currently maintain. The second goal the agency set for itself was to cooperate with local law enforcement in public corruption trials. Cicely Woods from our agency did testify in the trial of Ken Mills, so this goal was fulfilled. And the third goal the agency set for itself was to fill open positions within the Agency of Inspector General. The agency did meet that goal as it welcomed aboard its 2 newest members last half, Kim Seeley and Mary Bradley. So this just gives a highlight of our budget for 2021. As you can see, we came in about $250,000 under budget in the personnel services. However, that is due to all the vacancies that occurred during 2021. That is not likely to be repeated. And it also appears from looking at this chart that we went over budget in 2 of our subcategories. However, because our budget is allocated to two main categories, personnel services and other expenditures, we actually did not go over budget. We actually came in under budget in the other expenditures category to the tune of about $24,000. So I think moving forward, we will probably just report out on the main categories to avoid any confusion.
Sounds good.
So the Agency of Inspector General is empowered with administering the county's debarment law pursuant to County Code Section 505. The majority of our debarments fall into one of 2 categories, or that stem from one of 2 sources, I should say. The first is the fishbowl cases and the efforts with that project. And the second is the background checks that we run on our contractors. So when contractors register with our agency, we do a very thorough background check. And if we uncover any negative information, we might use that to decide to move forward with and initiate debarment proceedings. Last half, 14 debarment matters were completed, and 9 of those contractors did ultimately get debarred by our agency. With those 9, the county is now up to, or I should say the current debarment list is now up to 21 contractors. And the chart on this slide just shows when those debarments will be rolling off. So you'll see that the first half of 2022, there will be 4 debarments rolling off, the first one at the end of May.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question about the debarment, the 9 that you identified that were debarred, and what was the basis for the debarment?
These were all, through the chair to Councilwoman Sweeney, these were all due to the fishbowl efforts, all 9. And actually, of the 14 matters that the agency completed last half, 13 of those were fishbowl cases.
So through the chair to our Inspector General, are there ever appeals from these debarred?
There can be, however, I have yet to see one. They would be appealed to the Debarment Review Board.
So the tax delinquent businesses are not appealing, they're just paying or stepping aside?
They're paying or getting on a payment plan or,
Okay.
or getting debarred,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. Please continue. Oh, Councilman Miller?
How many contractors who were debarred completed their time and went off in the second half of 2021?
I don't think anybody dropped off last half.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay. So twice a year, our agency reviews the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles records for county employees who either are authorized to operate a county-owned vehicle or who drive their own personal vehicle in the course of county employment. There were 2,039 such employees whose state driving records we reviewed, and out of those we identified 19 issues. 6 were suspended, 8 were expired, and 5 employees had a valid driver's license at the time of our review. However, at some point since the last review, they had a period of having an invalid license. There was 1 with a period of suspension and 4 with a period of expiration. And so then we take those results and we contact the employee's department director and also the Department of Human Resources to see if the employee actually drove during the time when they had an invalid license. Of those, we learned that 11 did not drive during the time they had an invalid license. 4 are still in the HR review process. 3 are no longer employed by the county, and there was 1 individual who did drive while she had an expired license. She was disciplined and received documented counseling. It is important to note that we do not discipline, that's for HR to do.
It goes the normal HR progressive discipline.
Yes.
It's in the handbook. Thank you. Councilwoman Baker.
This has always been a point of contention for me.
Oh, yes,
and
it
with
has, I remember.
The last Inspector General, and I do believe that we have really strengthened our awareness, and it sounds like what you have done here has really brought home what it is that we should be doing, and bringing, not only being aware of those that have invalid or suspended license, but we're now bringing that to the attention of the director, and we're now analyzing what that employee does with his driving, and we have really focused on making sure that they are not out there, because even an expired license, if they were to get into an accident, we are liable. We don't get a pass for that. So thank you for noticing this, strengthening it, making sure that we understand who they are and that they're not on the road. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I forgot about last time we had a discussion. You were very much specific on it, and you were a little bit frustrated, and it's nice to be able to see the progress through your basically push to make sure it got done.
Thank you.
Madam Inspector General.
In the report, we set 3 goals to work toward accomplishing for the first half. The first 2 deal with the first phase of our continuous monitoring program that we are establishing using data analytics. The initial run was done at the end of last half, and this half we are working toward analyzing all of the results and also working to establish what we think is an appropriate monitoring cycle. The first, the contractor registration compliance monitoring, that is looking to make sure that contractors are complying with the requirement that if they do more than $10,000 in business annually with the county, that they are required to register with us unless there's a qualifying exemption. So what we're doing is, for this, is we are pulling contractor data from Infor Lawson and comparing it to the data that we have in our case management system that holds our contractor registration records, and we are using data analytics to identify any gaps. For the conflict of interest monitoring, what we are doing is we are looking to see if there's any violations of the county ethics code. So if there is a conflict of interest, employees are required to report it, and they're required to fully recuse themselves. So what we've done here is pulled employee data and then compared that to vendor data that is pulled from Infor Lawson and also our contractor registration records. And we are using data analytics to compare those different sets of data to see if there's any overlap. So for instance, a county employee, if a county employee has the same address as a county contractor, that is worthy of looking a little further into it to making sure there's no conflict there. And the third goal we set for ourselves is to expand automation of office procedures. We had already been working toward automating as much as we can, for instance, with the contractor registrations, but now we have automated much of the correspondence that we send. The analysis stays the same, but it just makes us more efficient with the actual the menial tasks, I guess, associated with some of these things.
Councilman Miller, on the previous slide.
To Inspector General Beeler through the chair. How often is a registered contractor required to re-register or update their registration?
Contractor, through the chair to Councilman Miller, contractors are required to register every 4 years if they're continuing to do more than that threshold amount of business with the county.
And the threshold amount is on an annual basis, is that correct?
Yes, and it's up to the contractor to be aware of that amount.
And if contractors fall off and don't re-register, do you do any follow-up to determine whether they're still doing $10,000 worth of business with the county?
Through the chair, we do not. However, this would, in theory, catch those contractors who are doing business in that amount but not registered with us.
Okay, so that would be an upgrade.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you, Councilman Miller. On his first point, every 4 years, they are asked to reapply or update
Re-register,
their information.
yes.
If there's any changes within the 4 years, are they obligated to notify you?
What kind of changes do you mean?
Different address.
I believe that they would update within our system. I don't know that we require it, but they probably do just as a matter
Yeah,
of.
just a point to ponder, because
Yes.
4 years is a long
It is a long
time frame. And as next time we have a report, it's going to be 100% you.
It will be.
because-
Well,
because-
I shouldn't be presumptuous.
I'm
I
just-
hope that it is.
This has the Mark Griffin tenure to most of this report in regards to activity. So on this particular point, I'm bringing it up as a question that came into my mind, and if anything happens within a 4-year period, I believe they should be, obligated to update it, as we need to know as current as possible as they're doing business in our county. So just a point for you to ponder, if it's not there already.
Thank you. And it could be.
We'll figure it out.
I will make sure either way.
Thank you.
So since the previous slides all covered the information that was contained in the semi-annual report, and I wasn't here during that period, I did just want to give a little bit of an update on what we've done this first quarter. We have completed 25 investigations so far this quarter, which I'm very excited about because our agency's half-year average is 23 completed investigations. So we have already exceeded that semi-annual amount in just this first quarter alone. We've also assisted in collecting an additional approximate $1.2 million in property taxes as part of the fishbowl effort. We have furthered our lodging tax initiative. So Cuyahoga County has an excise tax on the lodging of transient guests, which requires that those who own and operate a hotel or their agents collect and remit a 6.5% excise tax. The definition of hotel is very broad, and it includes those types of residential properties that you would find on online booking platforms such as Airbnb. And we have actually had an agreement with Airbnb for multiple years where Airbnb collects those taxes from the properties that it promotes, and it remits those taxes to the county. However, they are the only similar company that we have such an agreement with. So letters went out last half to similar companies, and I'm happy to say that I've been in discussions with a leading competitor, and the goal here is to enter into an agreement. Probably a voluntary collection agreement would be the ultimate goal, but just really any type of agreement would be a win for the county, because we'd be collecting tax dollars that we likely wouldn't otherwise be collecting. We've also expanded our continuous monitoring program. We are in the beginning phases of looking at accounts payable and payroll. For the accounts payable, we have already identified many duplicates. We are still in the process of looking to see whether there was a subsequent refund or correction, and we'll have those reports by the next time we report out. For the payroll report, we are looking for indicators of ghost employees and other anomalies. So if there's excessive time, if there's excessive pay, that would be something that the monitoring would hopefully catch. And what's actually very interesting with this is we had received a complaint that, and I'll keep this very high level because this is ongoing, but we received a complaint that an employee had excessive time. And what's interesting is that employee actually came up as number 6 on our report. So our monitoring is working, and it's catching what it should. And it's also reassuring to know that even if we hadn't been notified at the transactional level, which a lot of times things get missed at the transactional level, and I actually think that this particular situation had been ongoing for some time, but it's reassuring to know that our continuous monitoring program, the data analytics, would have caught that and caused us to look at that employee anyway. And then the last point is that we've worked really hard to improve our agency processes. In addition to automating where we can, we've really tried to improve the substantive processes. So, for instance, the report that we submitted, it shows the complaints that were filed last half of 2021, and it shows that 1/3 were still in the open status, and 1/3 there were management referrals made, but the type of referral that doesn't require a response. So 2 things with that. The first, the open complaints. We are really working hard to get these matters in the appropriate hands as quickly as possible, ideally within days. So when a complaint comes in, there's a few things that could happen with it. We might determine that it warrants an investigation, in which case we would spin it to an investigation and assign a deputy inspector general, or we might think that it's better handled by someone else. But in either event, we really are working to get it into the appropriate hands as quickly as possible so that it can be addressed as quickly as possible. So our goal is to have, at any time, just a few open complaints at most, ideally 0 to few, just so that we can really be handling things as they come on or come in. And then the other, with regards to complaints, is we do think that management is best suited to handle a lot of the matters that come in, because we do respect line management and we respect HR's authority. But we are now increasing the use of what we call management inquiries, which is instead of just referring a matter to management without requiring a response, we are now utilizing a very valuable tool that we have in our code that allows us to make an inquiry and require a response. So I don't necessarily know that I mind how they handle it. I just want to make sure that it is being handled. And so that gives that level of assurance. And I think it increases the accountability for both the department and for our agency to be handling the complaints that people are bringing to our agency, just to make sure that they are being handled. And then the last with that is the way that we are handling our investigations, particularly our older investigations. We've implemented regular case reviews, taking a small batch at a time and sitting down and saying, okay, where are we on each one? What needs to happen next? And then we meet in a week, and then the expectation is that all those next steps have been taken, and what undoubtedly happens is we have less to talk about next time because things are moving toward a resolution. And I definitely credit that for us already surpassing our half-year average in the first quarter alone. So that's all I have as far as my presentation, but yes.
Just a few questions in regards to the slide. One, you talked about management reviews.
Yes.
So you're going to go out, management, you're going to ask them for a response, they're going to give you a response. The response might be, we've addressed it, it's an HR matter, and we've taken care of it. Is that what you expect, or do they have to tell you that this person's been disciplined and has been suspended for 2 days? Which is it that satisfies your management request?
So I suppose through the chair to Councilman Sean, there might be some of this answer that depends on the particular complaint we're talking about, but the most important thing is that I have an assurance that they are handling it. I do want to know that it's been handled to a resolution and actually looked at.
Do you think you're entitled to see the resolution?
I think in a lot of cases, the resolution might even be public record, but.
It might be, but
Yes. So most likely.
Sometimes it could just be counseling in the eyes of management.
Right, and that
that's-
might be the case.
That doesn't necessarily become a public record, I wouldn't think.
I
I'm
think if
just
it's
counseling-
documented counseling, I'm not sure if that ends up in somebody's file, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that,
I think it's a slippery slope.
I think it's a slippery
So I
slope,
want to make sure that you stay in your lane and get your information that you need and get the response. But I think that it can be a slippery slope if you start moving into what was done HR-wise and what was done to discipline to that individual as far as your need to know. And that's just my caution in regards to it. Only because you've got 25 investigations up here, and you probably know where I'm going to go. How many do you have total that are open that were handed to you when you picked over this responsibility?
so at the time that I came on board, there were a little under 100. A decent chunk were quite aged. However, we are working hard to get everything moving how it should be moving.
I have no doubt that you're going to try to do your part to clean that up. Those of us in business, we age things. We age the receivables, the payables, how long has been outstanding, when did somebody pay their bill, when did we pay our bill, all those kind of things out there. I think it would be in the best interest of this committee to know how's your oldest, what's your average, what's your annual, what's your prosecuting time to get these things wrapped up, because I think it would be a very viable way of, you said you worked in analytics. You couldn't be more analytical than that pieces of information out there that I've got 100, my 100 average is to 90 days, I'll just pick a number. My target is to get them down to 45 days or whatever your goals are going to be, but it seems to me that would be a very, very good way for us to identify out there. I know that one of the things that when your predecessor came in here, one of the things that he was most concerned about was the aging of our collection of outstanding loans. And so if that was something he was concerned about, then we ought to keep that same standard, I believe, from 100 cases. Because if I'm the complainant, I'd want to know that, what it was done in a timely manner. If there's 100 out there, there's nothing worse than to turn in a complaint and think it fell on deaf ears and it never got, I mean, this whistleblower that we just spent a lot of time talking about is only effective if it's effective. And if it sits on the back burner for X amount of period of time, it seems to me that it dilutes, don't waste your time on that because nothing ever gets done with it. So my suggestion is it would be a great thing, I think, in 6 months for you to come back and say, when I took over, here's my aging. Today, I moved it to this, and so we can know and set some goals and objectives out there. Is what it only because it was number one on that last slide of 25 cases. So you should be proud of that. If you're already ahead of their half a year target in just 3 months, that's phenomenal. The other one that was kind of just curious about is again, because we just talked about this whistleblower, the furtherance of lodging tax. Many times the B&Bs the Airbnbs and things like that, are one room somebody has in the county, are they responsible to pay that tax? I think they are, aren't they? Now, assuming that maybe is a friend or a relative and that it's a county employee that's a relative of that person, are they responsible under this, what we just got done talking about, of turning that person in because it's a violation of a tax code?
So are you asking if there's a,
What we just discussed,
Yes,
is
so
that
if
an
somebody-
obligation
if somebody
because
owns
it's a
a
violation
property-
of the tax code and whether it's knowingly or unconsciously, that person who's running a one-room B&B, and it just so happens as a county employee that's their sister, brother, uncle, aunt, are they obligated now with what we just discussed under the mandate to turn that person in?
Well, under the mandate that passed, I would say no, because the mandate that was passed was narrowly
Okay, I just
tailored
want,
to
you know,
Title
I want,
Yes.
not that I'm trying to say somebody shouldn't pay their taxes. I'm just
Right.
trying to find out whether our county employees have just been turned into people that have to turn their friends and neighbors, their relatives in, because these B&Bs are everywhere. I mean, and it's a perennial problem all over the country. Some places only have said if you have 3 units, you report. If you only have 1 unit, it's not the same thing. But anyway, thank you.
Any other questions?
I
Just
have a quick question.
Councilwoman
Mr.
Simon?
Chair, so to what, and maybe you spoke to this, but more specifically, to what do you attribute the increase in completion of the investigations?
I think it has a lot to do with our regular case reviews. So we're really looking at things maybe that haven't been looked at in a while and sitting down, oldest cases first, 5 at a time. Let's talk about where each one of these 5 are. What are the next steps that we need to take to work this toward a resolution?
Was there a shortage of staffing to enable that to happen the last year? What actually, is this a new policy? They just collected dust? Like what, just let's speed up the thing? But there's adequate staffing now to do the job, right?
There is.
Consistently.
And I will say, so I managed a docket for over 10 years, so I'm very cognizant of the timing, figuring out the best way to bring a case to a resolution. I mean, I used to have to report out every month cases over a certain age, so I'm very willing to report to this committee our progress on timing. So this is the type of thing, I mean, it is in the forefront of my mind. So it is something that we are definitely working on very, very hard.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, to Councilman Schron's comment about the tax evasion example, that wouldn't even been required under substitute 4 that I was proposing because the violation would have had to occur in the course and scope of employment. So if you're a weekend, if you have a B&B, that's not in the course and scope of the employment. They wouldn't be mandated to report as a follow-up.
I guess my
To
thought would
you.
be if they're in the treasurer's office or they're in the real estate tax department, their course of employment is to identify, I think, delinquent taxes.
After hours? I don't know.
I don't know.
That's one of the
That's why-
questions. I just
just
had
wanna
to
open
address
Pandora's
your
box.
comment because
Yeah.
that might have been a distinction.
Yeah, that's fine.
Chair? I have a question, if I may. All right, thank you. Just a couple quick things. In 2018, the last Inspector General had difficulty getting answers back from the directors on a timely basis. And he was at the time working with the DOD in trying to resolve the loan issues and was struggling in trying to get responses back so that he could work with them to resolve some of the delinquents' payments that were occurring. So in 2018, we created a bill or a legislation 0012 that does mandate a director or anyone who is asked to respond. So if he found that very helpful. Just having it, I think, is enough. Not that he always had to say that he had it, but there's an understanding, I think, that when he comes before us and does what you have done today, he knows that the question will be, well, why didn't they get back to you on a timely basis? He knows that this is in place for him to be able to use, so just for what that's worth. The second part of, another part of the whistleblower that we didn't talk about that I'm looking at your report here under training. And under training in this new whistleblower legislation, it emphasizes about the whistleblower. Yes. And can you tell me a little bit how you're going to integrate that into the training program?
Well, I've had on my list of things to do to update the training, but I wanted to first wait to see what happened with the whistleblower, because that would have obviously drastically changed how we do things. I also wanted to make sure that I would be the one doing the training, or whoever is in this place would be the appropriate person to do the training. But however the council falls, and if this comes for final vote the way that it was passed today, then we will train accordingly for the initial onboarding and then also the annual updates, the annual ethics training.
All right. So you're going to make sure that within the training that is a piece that's emphasized for our existing employees and for those that are new employees, that this is in fact something that we strictly want to have done, that if you see something, you report it, and that will be part of, even more than it is now, your training. Is that what you hope to do?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair, your microphone. Your microphone.
I was trying to keep it off and keep it on. Inspector, thank you very much for the half-year review. And just an observation, your passion for this job is very evident. And I thank you for your hard work and your presentation today, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank
So,
you.
with that being said, the committee is adjourned. Thank you to my colleagues. And thank you to the dedicated staff that put up with us for an hour and a half. Jane, Victor, and Ashley.